But speaking of holes in the ground, not that kind. We have our third poem
Yes.
to get to.
Now this is a poem that is sung by Gimli in Moria. And you know when the dwarf starts singing, it's going to be a doozy. So that's the thing about the dwarves, is that they tend to come off as very like gruff and dirty. They're a mining type of folk, so they're very gruff. They may be a little uncouth, a little bit crass. If anybody at the Fellowship is going to laugh first at a dirty joke, it's not Merry or Pippin, it's Gimli. He's a miner.
It's one of them, yeah.
It's almost certainly going to be Gimli. Merry and Pippin are just like juveniles. And having worked in a factory, that's like the closest that I've come to working in a mine. I worked with nothing but people with the personalities of dwarves all around me. But when they say something beautiful, that's the thing about the dwarves, is that when they do poetry, when they say something beautiful, when they have song, it is astoundingly beautiful. Because the dwarves make fantastic and beautiful things. Even though they're usually covered in dirt and you can't tell the difference between the men and the women, and all of the dwarven stereotypes. So as the Fellowship is in Moria, apparently not at all taken to pause by the fact that there's skeletons everywhere, Gimli decides to sing this song to introduce them to what it's like being a dwarf. And again, there is some Silmarillion lore context for this one. Because this has been titled the Song of Durin. It's also called The World Was Young and the Mountains Green, but a lot of you will know it as the Song of Durin. The link to the Clamavi de Profundis version of this will also be in the the description. Go watch that too.
Mm-hmm. And then learn to sing it.
And I will specifically request that the a cappella full version, be the one that is put in the description. That's the best one.
If you say so, that's what I will do.
That's the best one. There is also a cover of the Clamavi de Profundis version done by Cole McGuinness and Jonathan Young and one other bass. That is spectacular. Go listen to that too.
Okay. For context, by the way, this isn't right when they enter Moria.
No, they've been in Moria for a while.
If you remember that scene from the movies where they enter the great city with all of the pillars and columns and the majesty of it all, right? Even though it's dark, the great city of Darrowdwelf. It is here that Gimli sings what Ethan is about to read.
The world was young, the mountains green, no stain yet on the moon was seen. No words were laid on stream or stone, when Durin woke and walked alone. He named the nameless hills and dells, he drank from yet untasted wells. He stooped and looked in mirror, and saw a crown of stars appear as gems upon a silver thread above the shadows of his head. The world was fair, the mountains tall, in elder days, before the fall of mighty kings in Nargo throned, and Gondolin, who now beyond the western seas have passed away. The world was fair in Durin's day. A king he was on carven throne, in many pillared halls of stone, with golden roof and silver floor and runes of power upon the door. The light of sun and star and moon and shining lamps of crystal hewn, undimmed by cloud and shade of night, there shone forever fair and bright. The hammer on the anvil smote, their chisel clove and graver wrote. Their forge was blade and bound was hilt, the delver mined the mason built. Their beryl, pearl, and opal pale, and metal wrought like fish's mail, buckler and corselet, axe and sword, and shining spears were laid in hoard. Unwearied then were Durin's folk. Beneath the mountains music woke. The harpers harped, the minstrels sang, and at the gates the trumpets rang. The world is grey, the mountains old, the forge's fire is ashen cold. No harp is rung, no hammer falls, the darkness dwells in Durin's halls. The shadow lies upon his tomb, in Moria, in Khazad-dûm. But still the sunken stars appear in dark and windless Miramir. There lies his crown in water deep, till Durin wakes again from sleep. Again, we have this. We have multiple stanzas, 5 stanzas of good. So at the beginning of the world, which for context, the race of dwarves is actually older than the race of elves.
Yes.
By quite a bit. But that's because one of the Maya, who was it?
One of the Valar.
One of the Valar. Aule.
Had decided to...
Aule got a little bit ahead of himself.
Yeah.
And decided, hey, look, Eru, I made something. And it was a dwarf. And Eru said, what have you done? What is wrong with you? How dare you create life? That is for me. And then he moves to strike the creature down, but the creature recoils in terror. And it wasn't Eru, it was Manwë.
No, it was Eru.
It was Eru? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, because I thought he brought it to his boss, who in the interest of his boss. No,
he didn't bring.
Oh no,
he had made the dwarves, and he was beginning to.
That's right.
I forget what he was beginning to do, but then Iluvatar just shows up and is like, "What did you do?"
Like, what are you doing? Like, oh crap, my boss's boss's boss. For context, those of you that know the choirs of angels, this is like a domination doing his thing, and then God just shows up. There's like 3 other choirs of angels in between in the hierarchy, and God just like appears. So Eru moves to strike the creatures down, and they recoil in terror, and Eru has pity on them. So he actually breathes upon them. And he grants his blessing upon them that, yes, while you have done the molding, these are now mine. And Aule kind of goes, oh, thank goodness. Oh. For a minute there, I thought I was going to get kicked out. And the difference between Aule and Morgoth, by the way, is that Morgoth was adding a discordant tone that was entirely him. It is because he thought he knew better. Aule is actually trying to help. When he makes the dwarves, Aule just is like, I have an idea. And then Eru shows up like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm. There's a similarity but a difference. And Aule repents.
Yeah.
You know?
It's sort of like when my children decide that they're going to help, and they don't. When my daughter decides, I'm going to help Daddy mop the floors.
Oh, goodness.
So she just dumps a bucket of water over the floor. She hasn't done this, but this is exactly the kind of thing a 3-year-old would do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to help, and I'm going to mop the floors because I want to be helpful. That's basically what Aule is doing when he creates the dwarves. And Durin is the first king of these dwarves. Technically, he's the first dwarf. But one of the things that Eru does is he puts the dwarves to sleep. Because while they were created before he has intended to create in his image,
mm-hmm.
before he has intended to create life, they still cannot be the first to walk the earth. So they have to wait until a little while after the elves have been created. So he puts them all to sleep. Then he creates the elves, he lets them do their thing for a little bit, and then he wakens the dwarves. And that's all there is to that, because the rest of it basically has to do with why Gimli and Legolas's friendship is so spectacular.
Yeah. Go watch one of our last episodes about that.
Yeah. Either the previous episode or the one before it. I think it's the one before it.
Yeah, the one before.
2 before it. One of the New Year's resolution ones. Anyway.
Episode 25. Episode 25.
Go watch. So this poem is basically about Durin waking. So when Durin woke and walked alone. So he's the first of these dwarves to wake.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes and he's like Adam for the dwarves. He goes and he names the things that do not yet have names. And drank from yet untasted wells. Basically, he is this is the illustration that he is the first there. It mentions the world was fair, the mountains tall, in elder days before the fall of mighty kings in Nargothrond and Gondolin. So this is a really long time ago. Because we're First Age.
Yeah, in other words, he's just glossing over basically all of the Silmarillion.
Yeah, the end of The Lord of the Rings is the beginning of the Fourth Age.
Yes.
So there's 2 whole ages in there that are now being... And the Silmarillion doesn't even begin with the beginning of the First Age. It's like the pre-First Age, and then it's the First Age. A lot of this is pretty self-explanatory. Durin is a great king. Wonderful, beautiful, shining, prosperous kingdom. And this is something of a song of longing for the dwarf people. A song of longing and memory for how great the times were when Durin was king. Sort of like how Catholics think of how great the times were when Christendom was whole. It's like, man, when Baldwin was king of Jerusalem. The similar kind of vibe.
The dwarves take it a step further. They believe, I believe, in reincarnation to an extent.
To an extent. And I think to an extent it's actually true for the dwarves.
Well, my guess is that it's not. But basically, there's Durin the First, which is the Durin of this poem, of this song. And there's Durin the Second and Durin the Third. And so, ask Aule. And Manwë.
Ask him what he intended of...
And Mandos and Iluvatar, and they might give you the answer. Maybe.
But then in the very last stanza, we have the world is gray, the mountains old, and the forge's fire is ashen cold. So, basically... It's been a long time, and the heyday of the dwarves is very much long past. Erebor is for the most part at peace, except for that one battle that they're definitely going to have to fight.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no indication that Dane is not a good king. Like, Dane Ironfoot is now king of the dwarves.
Mm-hmm.
King of the dwarves under the mountain, anyway. Despite the tragedy that has befallen Balin and the dwarven expedition to Moria. But this is also something of an illustration of Moria itself, because Moria was a great city of the dwarves. The greatest city of the dwarves after Erebor. After the city under the mountain.
Yeah, it was their home. Erebor was an imitation. Kind of.
And now
Nothing could beat Moria.
And now it's empty. And it's cold. And Balin lay dead. Not only is it empty and it's cold, but it is infested with goblins. And horror of horrors, at Balrog.
Durin's Bane.
Which, it's implied that the dwarves found, because they delved too greedily and too deep.
Mm-hmm.
As Icarus flew too close to the sun. And they woke something that they could in no way have fought. Gandalf is a Maya, and it takes everything he has to go toe-to-toe with a Balrog.
Mm-hmm.
So, like...
There's 2 or 3 instances in Tolkien's Legendarium where someone goes one-on-one with the Balrog and kills them. The common thread between all of those is that the person who kills the Balrog also dies.
Yeah. So, 2 things to keep in mind. The Balrog that we see in the films, and the Balrog that is in the Fellowship... That's a small one.
Yeah, it's not Gothmog, the Lord of the Balrogs.
At the fall of Gondolin, how many Balrogs were there? Which included Gothmog.
Good question. I'm not going to get into it because Tolkien nerdiness that I don't need to get into. Basically, he changed the number of Balrogs in the universe. He didn't even know. But there were enough Balrogs at Gondolin. How about that?
100 Balrogs. We'll say 100 Balrogs at Gondolin. That sounds like a correct word.
We'll say 3 to 100. How about
Somewhere between 3 and 100. And the one in Moria is a small one. For those of you who have played Middle-earth Shadow of War, Targoroth is a small Balrog.
Mm-hmm.
Not the ones that were sent to Gondolin.
Mm-hmm.
But back to the poem. Interesting how we have one stanza that changes tone. This very last stanza. The world is gray, the mountains old, the forge's fire is ashen cold. No harp is rung, no hammer falls, the darkness dwells in Durin's halls. Moria. It's dark, it's cold, it's infested. The shadow lies upon his tomb in Moria in Khazad-dûm. But still the sunken stars appear in dark and windless Miramir. Which Miramir is a pond, a pool of water. Mm-hmm. There lies his crown in water deep, till Durin wakes again from sleep. That's very Arthurian. If I might just add, the glory of the king lies underwater until he again returns. And there's an old Germanic tale about a king under the mountain who will sleep. What is it? That the king will sleep until his beard grows long enough to wrap around the chamber 7 times. And then he will rise and wake again. It's a very old Germanic tale, so something else that Tolkien appears to be drawing on. But the dwarves clearly have this idea that Durin's very crown is sunken beneath the waves. It's sunken underwater until he wakes again, and that Durin is not actually dead but only sleeping, and that one day he will wake and he will rule again, and we will once again have a time of glory. Because everything, the dwarven life, was at its best when Durin was king. This air of hope at the very end, even the dwarves have hope. Because the dwarves have the distinction of being the only race that is not created by or descended from something that was created by Eru himself. Mm-hmm. And even they, who sort of have this weird view of reality, this kind of belief in reincarnation, they still have a hope of some kind. Because the stars have not gone dim. They still shine in Miramir. Which again is the entire point of The Lord of the Rings, which I think everybody gets, is hope. As bad as things are, there are still stars in the sky. And there are still the sunken stars appear in dark and windless Miramir. Dark and windless. The pond is still and clear.
It's waiting.
Waiting for the king to reach in and grab his crown.
At a time that we know not, but we know it cometh.